Hello, second grade Smarties, and welcome to Wit and Wisdom Module 2, the American West, lesson number 12. So, yesterday we introduced our book, Journey of a Pioneer, and it was a book that gave us a narrative nonfiction story about a girl named Olivia and her diary about traveling to Oregon in the early American West. So, yesterday we talked about what we noticed and what we wondered. Today, we are going to be talking about what is happening in our book. So, yesterday we learned about Olivia and her family's journey from Missouri to Oregon. And if you look at this map, it shows us the route that Olivia's family would have taken to get to Oregon. And if you look really closely, I have a circle right here on Independence Rock. And remember, we talked about in the book yesterday that Independence Rock was an important place when traveling on the Oregon Trail. What do you notice about where Independence Rock is on the Oregon Trail? So they started in Missouri. They got to Independence Rock, and then they traveled the rest of the way to Oregon. What do you notice about where Independence Rock is on this map? Tell me in the puzzle. So if you look really closely, Independence Rock is halfway from Missouri to Independence Rock and Independence Rock to Oregon. And remember, it talked about in the book that once you got to Independence Rock, if you got there at the right time of year, you would avoid traveling during the winter when trying to get to Oregon. So getting to Independence Rock was really important for those who were traveling to Oregon on the Oregon Trail. So we are going to be exploring some more in our book, The Journey of a Pioneer. And yesterday we talked about what we noticed and what we wondered. We talked about how we noticed that our main character, Olivia Clark, was writing in a diary. She was writing to her diary. I want you to think, what are some other text features that you saw when listening and looking at the pages of this book yesterday? What are some text features that you noticed? Tell me in the puzzle. So, some text features that I noticed, especially when we're talking about nonfiction texts, is that it gave us dates. It gave us important dates that Olivia was writing during. And then if we look later in the book, it gave us some pictures. It gave us captions about real information. It gave us pictures of maps. It gave us details about what was happening in the book. So this book is a narrative nonfiction. That means it is giving us information about a real topic in the form of a story. And this story is written as a diary. So why do you think all these features, all these text features are in this book? Why did the author give us dates? Why did the author give us picture captions? Why did it give us more information about the topics? Why did the author include all those text features? Tell me in the puzzle. The author gave us all that information so we understand a little bit better about what is happening to pioneers during this time. Remember, we have talked about Plains Indians, and that informational book gave us details about how Plains Indians lived. This book is making our story more interesting by giving us details about what happened in real life on the Oregon Trail. So this book gives us information in the form of a diary. So there are three major events that happened. And in those three major events, there's little details that we learned about the Oregon Trail. I want you to listen to the first page and hear what is the main event that is happening on this page for March 23rd, 1845. Dear Diary, my name is Olivia Clark, and I've lived in Elk Grove, Missouri my whole life. But that's about to change. Pa heard that many farming families are moving west to Oregon Territory. They're looking for free, open land and a new start. Since times are tough and our little plot of land can't produce many crops, we're leaving too. Papa told us at supper. I can't sleep. What is the main event that happens on that page? Tell me in the puzzle. So we learn on March 23rd, 1845, that Olivia's family is moving to Missouri. So I am making a timeline right here. So March 23rd is the third month, 23, 1845. So at the beginning of our timeline, Olivia's family is moving to Oregon. That is the big event. And then in the middle, there's going to be other events that give us more details about their traveling to Oregon. So on March 23rd, 1845, Olivia's family is planning on moving to Oregon. So these are the main events that happen. Olivia and her family prepare. So I'm going to change that. Prepare to move to Oregon. That's the first main event. There's details that tell us in the book about how they were preparing. Then later in the book, so this is happening over time. Later in the book, we learn about Olivia and her family, Olivia's family faces challenges on the trail. Okay, and in the book, it gives us more details about it. We don't have a specific date for that because that happens while they are traveling. So they prepare to leave from March to April. And then starting in May, that is when they are facing those challenges. And the last main event is in September of 1845. They arrive to Oregon. So I made a timeline, and this diary is going to be really helpful because these are the three main events, and all of the details that we learn about their journey would go in between those main events. So we are going to read this book again, and I want you to listen for important details that happen during these main events. All right, so let's get started. Get your body ready to listen and to read with Miss Mason. And I am going to challenge you to try to read with me. So read the pages with me. All right, so we just found out about Olivia's family moving to Oregon. This is the next page. March 24th, 1845. Ma said Oregon Territory is far away and it will take many months to get there. Pa warned that we'd travel long distances through wilderness. Sometimes we'll be the only white folks around. Once we arrive, we'll have a very large plot of land all to ourselves. This means a bigger house, a barn for the animals, and space to grow lots of crops. I hope I like it there, wherever there is. April 8th, 1845. We've been selling our furniture and anything else that won't fit in our wagon. Ma has filled large barrels with food and packed our cooking tools, china, and bedding into a trunk. I've packed my doll Joanna, but will leave her bed behind. Pa said that he would build Joanna another bed when he makes our new furniture. He has bought oxen to pull the wagon. And then this picture caption, this text feature, it says traveling light. Food took up most of the room in the small space inside the wagon. Many personal items had to be left behind. April 10th, 1845. Today we said our last goodbyes. Grandma hugged me so tight I almost stopped breathing. Ma cried when friends gave her a friendship quilt. Pa had tears in his eyes too. I wondered why everyone was so sad. Ma told me later that we might not see many of these people ever again. I didn't want to believe her, but Ma never lies. Friendship in a quilt. Friendship quilts were a popular parting gift. Friends sewed their names onto the quilt's colorful squares. All right, so in that chunk of time, I want you to tell me a detail you learned about Olivia and her family preparing to leave for Oregon. What did they do to get ready to leave for Oregon? Tell me in the puzzle. They packed up their things. They sold and traded their things. They bought oxen. They said goodbye to their friends and family. So those details all go with that main event of them preparing to leave for the Oregon Trail. Now we are moving on to the next event. May 4th, 1845. Today we reached our jumping off point, Independence, Missouri. We bought last-minute wagon supplies here and met up with others heading west. We've split up into groups of wagons called trains. Each train includes men with important skills such as doctors, blacksmiths, and builders. In our train, there is also a girl named Lizzie. She could be my new best friend. May 13th, 1845. We've settled into a daily routine now. We wake as the sun rises. Ma makes breakfast. Pa hitches up the oxen. We pack up our things and away we go. Most of the day, we walk behind the wagon. Sometimes we pick wildflowers. We travel up to 15 miles until night falls, or we fall over. And then this caption says Independence Rock. To avoid traveling in the winter, families hope to get to Independence Rock, Wyoming by the 4th of July. June 11th, 1845. We make camp when we find a spot with enough grass and water for the oxen. Pa unhitches the oxen and lets them rest. I collect dead sagebrush and dried buffalo dung for the fire and help put up our tent. Ma makes dinner. Tonight, we used a tablecloth and candles since it was Pa's birthday. For a minute, it felt a little like home. Forming a corral. Each night, the travelers put their wagons in a circle to keep their animals in and wild animals out. June 21st, 1845. After dinner, we clear the table, wash dishes, and make beds in the tent. On special nights, Pa and others play their fiddles and harmonicas. We sing and dance under the moon. Most nights, we just want to rest. I count backwards to get to sleep. It keeps me from wondering how close the howling animals are. Men take turns sitting watch to protect the camp. July 7th, 1845. I try to be brave when we cross rivers, but it can be cold, wet, and scary. When the rivers are low, we just walk across. When the rivers are high, we wait until they are lower, and then the oxen pull the wagons across. As we cross, we watch the fast-moving river currents. Yesterday, one man drowned and 2 wagons tipped over. The families lost everything. And then the caption says, wagons were sealed with tar or pitch to prevent leaks. July 28th, 1845. I have seen Indians from far away a few times, but today I saw my first Indian up close. He was tall, thin, and had dark hair and skin. He wore leather and feathers. He offered us buffalo meat. Ma gave him some blankets in return. Pa traded some nails and beads for some moccasins. Indians aren't as scary as I thought they would be. And then the caption about the buffalo stampede. It says travelers had more to fear from buffalo than from Indians. A stampede could trample them to death. Remember we talked about how bison can run 30 miles per hour? So they run very quickly. August 3rd, 1845. Notice that our diary is going in order of the months of the year. So we are now in August. It says meals on the trail are different than they were back home. Most days we eat cornmeal, beans, or rice served with bacon or dried beef. On windy or rainy days, we can't start fires, so everyone has cold meals. If Pa goes hunting, he might bring back an antelope or catch a rabbit or a bird for us to eat. When we find berries, Ma uses them to make fresh baked pies. August 9th, 1845. After endless prairies, we finally reach the mountains, but climbing the steep sides is hard work. To go up, we have to lighten our load, which means dumping Ma's stove and trunk. To get down, we tie rope to a tree and then the back of the wagon. Then we slowly let out the rope. The Rocky Mountains are too steep. Luckily, we used a flat, wide path through them called South Pass. Oregon Territory is close. So here they are. They are going through South Pass to get to Oregon. It says South Pass was a 12-mile wide trail through the otherwise impassable Rocky Mountains. August 18th, 1845. On the trail, we have seen births, celebrated holidays, and marked many special events. We have seen tragedy too. Some people have become very ill and died. Others have been struck by lightning, shot while hunting, drowned in river crossings, and killed by wagons and buffalo. The trail is filled with goodbyes. Today, Lizzie and her family set off on another path to a different part of Oregon Territory. I will miss her. Seeing the elephant. Pioneers would say, I've seen the elephant when they met illness and death along the trail. All right, so we have moved on. So at the beginning, we've talked about what they did to prepare to leave. And then starting in May, they start traveling on the Oregon Trail and they face challenges. So I want you to tell me in the Ed puzzle, what are some challenges that Olivia's family faced in this chunk of time? What are some struggles that they had in May, June, July, and August? What are some things that were challenging when traveling on the Oregon Trail? Tell me in the Ed puzzle. So on this page, on August 18th, it tells us that people had died from sickness, people drowned, some were shot while hunting. Sometimes they had to eat cold meals. They had to protect their tents and their wagons because of wild animals. So there were many challenges that they faced while traveling on the Oregon Trail. September 28th, 1845. After 2,000 miles and 5 months of traveling, we've arrived in Willamette Valley, Oregon Territory. After a few days' rest, we picked the plot of land where we'll live and farm. Once we've built our house, we'll have a big celebration with eating and dancing. We'll celebrate the end of our long journey and the beginning of our new life in Oregon Territory, our new home. So at the end of our timeline, so September 28th, 1845, what did Olivia's family do once they got to Oregon? Tell me in the puzzle. So once they got to Oregon, they picked the land that they would live. And they had a big celebration with eating and dancing to prepare for their new life in Oregon. So on this caption, it says Pioneer Diaries. Historians believe that 1 in every 250 pioneers kept diaries or journals along the trail, recording their risky journey. So we talked about what was happening in Journey of a Pioneer with a timeline using Olivia Clark's diary. So we talked about how they prepared for the Oregon Trail. the challenges they faced on the Oregon Trail, and then what they did once they arrived to Oregon. So this story gives us information about what it was like for pioneers that were traveling. So speaking of the Oregon Trail in the Great American West, yesterday we introduced this very beautiful piece of art. And these pieces of art on top should be familiar. We learned about these pieces of art in the first module. So looking at these paintings, what do all of these paintings have in common? What is the same about all of them? Tell me in the puzzle. They all show nature. They all show trees. Two of the paintings show animals, but all three of these paintings show us a landscape. Can you say landscape for me? A landscape painting shows us land or geographical features. So for example, the landscape in this first painting talking about winter, it shows us a landscape of a town, and it shows us a landscape of the snow, the mountains, and the trees. In this landscape painting, it shows us a landscape of land during the season of fall, as well as the colors we might see in the fall. In the piece of art that we are exploring with this module, it shows us a landscape of the state of Nevada. Say Nevada for me. Nevada is a western state that you travel through to get to Oregon. So looking at this landscape, what are some features that you notice on this landscape? I notice that there are trees, that there is water, there's mountains, and there's cliffs. I also notice in the background there is a waterfall. So what are some ways that artists show us different seasons? What are some things that artists do to show us seasons in their pieces of art? Tell me in the puzzle. Remember in the first module, we talked about how artists use different colors to portray the season or the main idea of what they're trying to show us in their piece of art. So in this first painting, the artist used some grays and whites to show us the season of winter. In this painting, the artist used reds, oranges, yellows, not a lot of greens, but they used those colors to relate to the season of fall. What season do you think this painting shows? What season do you think this painting shows? Miss Mason's moving. Looking at the colors and looking at what's happening with nature, what season is this painting showing? Tell me in the puzzle, what season do you think this is? So Miss Mason thinks, this is me thinking, we might have a different opinion. I think this is happening during summer. I think that because I see the sun in the sky. I see that the trees and the grass is still green. And I see that there are birds that are staying in one place. I don't see them in the sky migrating. So I think that this is happening during the season of summer. It might be happening in the season of spring or fall, but definitely not winter, right? What time of day do you think this painting is showing? Looking at the sky, what time of day do we think this is? Early morning, early afternoon, or nighttime? Tell me in the puzzle, what time of day is shown in this painting? So I'm thinking that this is showing us probably the middle of the day, right? Because we have some clouds in the sky, we see some sun, but to the side, we see some storm clouds. So I think that this is showing the middle of the day. What do you think? I'll check in the puzzle. All right, and now we're going to use our imagination. So I need you to close your eyes. I want you to imagine that you are in this painting. I want you to imagine yourself sitting in this grass by the deer, or maybe you're playing in the water. I want you to think, what are some sounds that you are hearing in your surroundings? So in the painting, what sounds would you hear if you were in this landscape? And I want you to think, what are some things you might be smelling? What are some things you might be smelling? All right, open your eyes. And in the Ed puzzle, tell me some things that you would be hearing and smelling if you were in this landscape. If I was in this landscape, I would hear this waterfall. I would hear the water moving. I would hear probably some ducks or geese flying and honking. I would probably hear some leaves rustling in the wind because of the storm. I might hear thunder or lightning. And some things I might be smelling grass. I might have a fishy smell in my nose from this lake or this body of water. I might be smelling maybe some pine, the smell of pine trees. So, friends, when we are looking at a piece of art, it is important that we pretend that we are in that piece of art so we can relate to it. Why do you think we are looking at this painting after reading the story, The Journey of a Pioneer? Why are we looking at this painting? How does it relate to our book? Tell me what you're thinking in the Ed puzzle. How does this painting relate to Olivia's journey on the Oregon Trail? Tell me in the Ed puzzle. So, we are looking at this piece of art because on the Oregon Trail, pioneers saw a lot of landscapes like this. They saw a lot, they had to travel through mountains, they had to travel over rivers. They saw wild animals. They had to travel through forests. So, this landscape is a landscape that Olivia's family could have seen on the Oregon Trail. So, I want you to think if you were traveling through this landscape, what would you be feeling? What feelings would you have while you were traveling on the Oregon Trail in this landscape? Tell me in the Ed puzzle. What would you be feeling if you were traveling through this? If I were traveling through this landscape, I would feel scared. I would feel scared because there's wild animals around me. There's really tall mountains, and I would be traveling on foot through storms and through bodies of water. So I would feel scared. I might also be amazed or surprised by how beautiful this landscape is. So I want you to think as we are reading through these books, think about how you would feel if you were traveling through the early American West. All right. And of course, with every book that we read, we have a writing activity that we prepare for when talking about what book we are reading. So, right now we are reading the book Journey of a Pioneer, and we have to find details that explain our topic statement. So, we talked about this last week with main points. We found main points that supported our topic statement when talking about the animals and crops that Plains Indians grew. So we are wanting to find clear and understandable details that support our topic statement. So I have a topic statement and some details that I'm going to read to you, and I want you to listen to them. Fire was good for the prairie. Trees grew, ashes fell. I'm going to read that again. Fire was good for the prairie. Trees grew, ashes fell. How were those sentences a good start to an informative paragraph? What made those sentences a good start? Our topic statement told us that fire was good for the prairie. It told us that trees grew and ashes fell. What is something that we could add to these sentences to make it better? What can we do to these sentences to make it better? Fire was good for the prairie. Trees grew, ashes fell. In the Ed puzzle, I want you to tell me, what would you do or what would you add to make this better? So if I was going to make this better, I would use topic specific words. I would talk about why the trees grew because of the ashes. I would talk about how the ashes fell and made the soil rich. I would give more details to explain why fire was good for the prairie. All right. So as we are reading and as we are thinking about our writing, it's important that we think about how we can always make our writing better. So here is what I'm going to do. We are going to listen to 2 paragraphs. Okay? We are going to listen to the topic statement and the details. The fire was good for the prairie. The calf may have been afraid of the flames, but they kept the trees from taking over the grasslands. The fire's ashes put nutrients into the soil, making the grass healthier for the buffalo that ate it. So our topics, what would be our topic statement? Sentence 1, sentence 2, or sentence 3? Which sentence is our topic statement? Sentence 1, the fire was good for the prairie. What sentences gave us more details about why the fire was good for the prairie? Sentences 2 and 3. I'm going to read it again, and I want you to listen to these details, and I want you to think, how do they relate to the topic statement? The fire was good for the prairie. The calf may have been afraid of the flames, but they kept the trees from taking over the grasslands. The fire's ashes put nutrients into the soil, making the grass healthier for the buffalo that ate it. Okay, so our topic statement was the fire was good for the prairie. What details did you hear in sentences 2 and 3? What details did you hear about the fire being good for the prairie? Tell me in the Edpuzzles. In the Edpuzzle, what details did you hear? Some details that I heard was that the fire kept trees from taking over the grasslands. That talked about why fire was good for the prairie. It also talked about how the ashes put nutrients into the soil, making the grass healthier. That was also good for the prairie. So it's important that our details are clear and we understand how they help our topic statement. All right, and we are going to wrap up this lesson with a deep dive. So yesterday we introduced capitalization and why it is so important. So we capitalize the first word in a sentence. We capitalize the names of people, places, dates, and important products. And we capitalize the word I when we are talking about ourselves. So we use proper capitalization to help us know when we hear an important word or a word that is important that talks about a person, place, or important product. So I have a sentence right here, and it has some words that are important that need to be capitalized. So I want you to look at this sentence with me and think about what words should be capitalized. To avoid traveling in the winter, families hoped to get to Independence Rock, Wyoming by 4th of July. Looking at this sentence, what are some important names of places or months that need to be capitalized? To avoid traveling in the winter, families hope to get to Independence Rock, Wyoming by 4th of July. In the Edpuzzle, I want you to tell me what words need to be capitalized because they are names of places or months. Tell me in the Edpuzzle. So the first 2 words that need to be capitalized are Independence Rock. Independence Rock is a name of an important place in the United States. Independence Rock is in the state of Wyoming. Names of states are also capitalized, so Wyoming needs a capital W. And the last thing that needs to be capitalized is July. July is the name of a month. So those 4, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4 words are important names of important places and months. So names of places, people, and months, and important products like Cheez-Its, Goldfish, Skittles, those are all capitalized. Those are proper nouns. Sometimes, though, we might be writing and we might capitalize a word that is not an important name of a place. So let's look at this sentence and see if there's a word that is capitalized that should not be capitalized. Here we go. When the rivers are low, we just walk across. I'm going to read that again. When the rivers are low, we just walk across. In the Add Puzzle, I want you to tell me what word in this sentence should not be capitalized. The word rivers. Rivers is just telling us that it's a body of water. It doesn't give us the name of an important river. If it was the Mississippi River, it would be capitalized, or the Tennessee River, but it's not a name of an important river. So rivers would need a lowercase r. All right, Smarties, as you are writing, as you are reading, I want you to find opportunities where you can find proper nouns that need capitalization, as well as maybe start a diary. After learning about Olivia and her journey, maybe you can start a diary and practice using correct capitalization. All right, Smarties, as always, keep that growth mindset. Good learners do hard things, and I'll see you tomorrow with another lesson. Happy learning.